Good morning. Today we're going to go ahead and talk about rates. Rates are things that you actually do see a lot, like, how many dollars you pay per gallon, miles per hour, things like that. So we're going to find rates and unit rates of various items. So that is our goal. All right, when we think about a situation here where I have Hannah and Kate were rollerblading. They skated 14 miles in 2 hours. If they skated at a constant rate, so like kind of like the same speed basically, how many miles did they skate in 1 hour? So we want to know how many miles did they skate in 1 hour. So you could think about it this way. Well, if I have 14 miles split up into 2 hours, that would then give us each of those being the same. The only way to do that is basically you would get 7 miles in 1 hour, because 7 miles in this one, 7 miles in this one would add up to the total. So a rate here, if we know what it is talking about how far we can go in 1 mile. So, or 1 hour, excuse me. Okay, here's another one. I have 5 crackers and they contain 205 calories. So all 5 have 205 calories. How many calories are in 1 cracker? So again, how many calories are in one of them? Okay. So think about it this way in a bar diagram. How many equal sections should the bar be divided into? So if I have 205 calories as the total, I have 5 crackers. That means that I am cutting this into 5 equal pieces. Now mine are as good as I can get. So what would be in each box here? Well, you're basically taking 205 and you're dividing it by 5. So how many 5s go into 20? That would be 4. And then how many 5 go into 5 is 1. So each of these would be 41 calories in each cracker. So that is the that is a rate here. So it's 41 calories in 1 cracker. There you go. So that's kind of showing you using a bar diagram. Okay. So what is a rate? A rate is basically taking a ratio that's comparing 2 different things, different kinds of units, but we're kind of finding what it is for one of them when you do a unit rate. So a unit rate is the rate for 1 unit of a given quantity. So here's the difference here. A rate is where I'm comparing 2 different things. So $2 for 3 pounds. Whereas a unit rate is where I'm trying to figure out how many dollars is it for 1 pound, where your denominator is talking about one thing or one item. Money, if we're talking about money anytime, money is always going to be the numerator. Always. No matter how big, how small that number is, it will always be the numerator. Okay? So this here is a rate. If I wanted to find the unit rate, it would basically be, I want to know how much it is for 1 pound. Well, what's 12 divided by 3? 12 divided by 3 is 4. So it's $4 for 1 pound. That's the difference between rate and unit rate. So I have those examples down here. So when it is a unit rate, $4 for 1 pound. Again, for a pound, meaning 1 pound. 15 miles per hour, so how many hours that is? That's 1 hour. It costs $3.50 for each candy bar, meaning for 1 candy bar. So kind of words to look at is in, like I'm going this many miles in this many hours, or if I have, per, like I'm going, you could say this many miles per hour, things like that, each, 1 for every. And basically, you're kind of replacing those with division signs. So if I look at these right here, if I have 18 miles in 30 minutes, I actually could write it like this. 18 miles in 30 minutes. So this is a division problem. So it really would look like then 18 divided by 30 to figure out how far we're going in 1 minute. Okay, that looks weird, but that's what it is. $4 for 1 pound. So this would be money on top, ready? $4 for 1 pound. Again, this could be changed into 4 divided by 1. It's a division problem. How much turkey was used per sandwich? Turkey per sandwich. So if I didn't give you any numbers, but hypothetically speaking, it would be turkey per sandwich. And how many sandwiches that would be? 1 sandwich. Okay? So whatever you have for the turkey would be divided by the sandwich. How many sandwiches you have? So there you go. Those are an idea of difference between rate, unit rate. What are those words that we're looking for to kind of know is we're trying to figure out one item, the price of one item, the cost of one item, or something like that. So if you look at this first example here, let's say Carrie's mom paid $42, paid a rate of $42 for 5 tickets. What is the unit rate? So I have $42 for 5 tickets. What is the unit rate? Unit rate means I want to know how much did she pay for 1 ticket. Okay? So you can kind of think of it a couple different ways. What do we always say goes on top here? So I have $42 for 5 tickets. And I want to know how much does it cost for 1 ticket. So what do you have to do? So to divide 42 divided by 5. So remember, your numerator always goes in the house. I don't care what it looks like. If it's small, big, has a decimal, doesn't matter. It's always going to be in the house. Just like since money is going to be always your numerator, money will always go inside. And then your denominator on the outside. So let's get this answer here. So 42 divided into 5 sections. So that doesn't work. 8 times 5 is 40 with 2 left over. So what do we do here? Remember, we've done this before. We add a decimal, raise it up, add a 0, bring it down. So this would be 20. So how many 5s go into 20? You would say 4. Okay? 8.4, but how do we actually say that? That is $8 and this is where kids get confused. Some kids will say this, and some kids will say this. Which one is the correct one? Well, hopefully you realize you can't just shove a 0 in front of the 4 because I don't have a 0 in front of the 4. So the answer here is $8.40. 40 cents for 1 ticket. So what is the unit rate? It's $8.40 for 1 ticket. Per ticket, a ticket, each ticket, every ticket. You can replace all of those with that right there. If you notice though, when I'm doing this, I am bringing over the symbols and the words. It's very, very important to do that now because it will help us in the future. Okay? All right, so remember that when you're asking to find a unit rate, we want to make sure that we have a denominator 1. So we're talking about whatever you're trying to find is the 1 is your denominator. Okay, so we're going to basically trying to figure out what we're trying to find 1 of. So let's look at this example. Samantha picked 45 oranges in 5 minutes. Write this rate as a unit rate. So the difference between rate and unit rate means for 1. Rate doesn't matter, it just would be that. That's a rate. 45 in 5 minutes. So what are we trying to find one of? Are we going to do oranges per minute or minute per orange? Well, go in the order that it says. It says 45 oranges, so it'd be 45, and yes, I do write out the word oranges in 5 minutes. The goal is to figure out how many, because we want to unit rate, how many oranges are in a minute or 1 minute per minute, whatever. So what do we have to do? We have to divide. Let's probably divide this in your head. So 45, and then divide it by 5. Hopefully you say 9. So I can pick 9 oranges in 1 minute. And that is your unit rate. So the difference here, this is the rate. This is a unit rate. So make sure you know the difference between the two. Unit rates have to have denominator 1, talking about one item, where a rate doesn't matter, just comparing two different things. Okay? All right, so let's look at where it's involving money. Okay? So remember, money involved, and I'm asking you to find like the cost of one item or how much one item costs. You gotta keep in mind that, again, we're trying to find what it costs for a item, each item, every item. And remember, money goes on top, or your numerator of the fraction. So sign at a grocery store reads, you can get, if you spend $8.50, you could get 2 cases of soda. Okay? What is the unit rate? The blue is the rate. I want the unit rate. So I want to know what it is for one item. So I want to know, what am I going to pay for 1 case of pop? So $8.50 for 2 cases. So remember, money on top, $8.50 for, or each, or whatever, 2 cases. And the goal is, I want to know the unit rate. So I want to know, how much does it cost for 1 case of pop? This is also called a unit price. So when you go to the grocery store, and sometimes like if you actually look at the label in the corner, it usually says like unit price. It'll actually tell you what you're paying like per ounce or per pound or something like that. So pay attention to that next time you go. Okay, so what are we gonna get? Well, we need to divide. So numerator always goes in the house. Denominator goes on the outside. And then remember, we have a decimal though, so we got to remember our rules. We raise it to the roof first, and then we're good to go. So here we go. How many 2's go into 8? That's 4. 0. Bring down your 5. 2 times 2 is 4 with 1 left over. I still have a 0, so don't forget about him. 2 times 5 is 10. So how much does it cost for 1 case of pop? $4.25 for a case, and that is your unit rate or unit price. That's what it's going to cost. Okay, now this is where kids get confused. Be careful on this one. Okay, now we go to the same grocery store, and I'm hungry for some Kit Kats. Okay, it says you can get, if you spend $5, you can get 10 Kit Kats. So think about that. $5 for 10 Kit Kats. I want to know, what is the unit rate? Are you going to be paying more than $1 per Kit Kat? The answer is no. You're going to be paying less than $1 per Kit Kat. So, what's the unit rate? We want $5, so money goes on top, for 10 Kit Kats. 10 Kit Kats. What do I want to know? I want to know, what is it going to cost me for 1 Kit Kat bar? Break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. Yes, that's good. Okay. So here's where kids get confused and freaked out, like, oh my gosh, this looks weird. Let's think about what we said. Money goes always in the house for this one, right? So I could write it like this, $5 cut into 10 pieces. And then you guys all freak out like that's not possible. Well, we have $5, I could write it like this, right? So remember, we bring the decimal up to the roof. 10 does not go into 5, so I put an X. That's okay. 10 goes into 50 5 times with nothing left over. So I have an extra 0, so this zero's got to have a buddy. So you could then read it as it's 50 cents or half of $1 for a Kit Kat bar. Let's see if that makes sense to you. 2 of them would be $1. 2 times, I got then 5 of them, so times 5 would be 10 Kit Kats. So there you go. It's 50 cents for a Kit Kat. That sounds reasonable. If you said $2 for a Kit Kat, you better go somewhere else. Unless you got it, I guess the king size could be like $2. Okay, so let's look at the words now in a word problem. We've actually already did these, so it shouldn't be too bad to kind of hinting at it at the beginning. So Shanna's heart beats 410 times in 5 minutes, okay? At this rate, oh, that's a rate. Now look at the question. It literally tells you the order. How many times, so that's the times as in like the beating, not as in multiply. How many times does her heart beat per minute? What do I want to know? I want to know how much does it beat in 1 minute. So the goal is for 1 minute. It says beats per minute. So this is time, so 410 times, that's her heart beating per minute. So it should look like this. See if this makes sense to you. 410 times, which is her beats, per 5 minutes. I want to know how many times does it beat, so how many times does it beat in 1 minute? If that makes sense to you. Hopefully you don't get a decimal, like less than 1, because if you didn't have a heartbeat, something's wrong. Okay, think about it that way. Okay, so 5, remember numerator goes in the house. Again, how did I know this was the order? Because I see it in 2 different places. This says times her heartbeats per minute. It's like going in that order, kind of like how we did ratios in a sense. Okay, so here we go. You should have said 8 and 2. So her heart beats 82 times in 1 minute. And if you notice, like a lot of like the Apple Watches and things like that, like kind of measure your resting heart rate. Same idea. Okay. Obviously, it will fluctuate, but this is just like typically what it's doing. Faster the more you run, and the more physical things that you're doing, obviously your heart's going to have to pump more blood into, or sorry, your body's going to pump more blood into your heart and things like that. So your body's moving. So, okay, let's look at this one. One of the fastest trains in the world can travel 2,144 miles in 8 hours. Here's the question. How many miles does it travel in 1 hour? So this doesn't even tell me. It already tells me I want to know what it is for 1 hour. So miles in 1 hour. So miles in 8 hours. Okay, MI is for miles, MIN is for minutes. So I want to know how many miles can they go in 1 hour. By the way, this is when you see a speed limit sign and it says, hey, you're allowed to go 65, and then it says speed limit. That's what that is. That is a rate. That's a unit rate. So this means you can go 65 miles in 1 hour if you stay at the rate. But we also write 65 miles per hour. Some of you also heard this, like depending on your car, like, oh, if you get 30 miles PG, MPG, That's miles per gallon. That's a rate. Okay. Should see unit rate. Let me be more specific. So notice that those are things that you can see in maybe like if you have a newer car, they usually actually show that. Mine right now is hovering around 30, so I get pretty good gas mileage. So here we go. Let's figure out how fast it's going. So 8, and then numerator in here doesn't work. 8 times 2 is 16. 5. 8 times 7 is 56, so too high. 8 times 6 is 48. Difference of, now see, I'm borrowing in my head, so excuse me, that's 6. 6. And then bring them down at 64 is 8. So it can go 268 miles in 1 hour, while trains can. As long as they are moving, they can go pretty fast. That's the fastest train in the world. Don't know where that was at, but okay, there's the answer. So what is the answer here? 268 miles in 1 hour. You also could write it technically 268 miles per hour. That's the abbreviation that you also sometimes see. All right, now, I think this was my last one. Actually, got 2 more and then I'm done. Okay, so Jonathan, now this one's a little different, so hopefully you're still here with me. Jonathan is baking several loaves of bread. He used 9 cups of water and 12 cups of flour. Now, let's look at the question. How much water did he use per cup of flour? Ooh. So we want water per flour, not like a flour that's just milk. So it needs to be water, so cups of water over cups of flour. So how many cups of water are there? There is 9 over 12. I want to know how much it is for 1 cup of flour. Okay. Now, you could do a decimal if you want. Okay. Because technically, how would I do this? Well, I have 9 over 12, so what would go in the house? 9. 12 would go on the outside. And I could then add a decimal, raise it up, add a 0 until it ends. This one would actually repeat, I do believe. No, it would not. Okay, so this one here would be, how many 12s go into 90? That would be 7, which is 84. 6 left over. Add another 0, bring it down, and there it is. You could write 0.75 cups of H2O, which is water, for 1 cup of flour. But hopefully you can see a relationship between that and 9/12. So you could also write it this way. We use a different color. So you have 9/12, right? Hopefully you realize you can simplify it by dividing by 3, and you get 3/4. So another way that you can write this as, and it looks weird, but this is correct, 3/4 of a cup of H2O for 1 cup of flour. These mean the same exact thing, because I got 3 out of 4, right? 3/4, 3/4 out of $1, meaning 4 quarters. Isn't that 75 cents? 75 cents. So either way, most of you probably going to decide which one you want to do based on what you're comfortable with. If you want to do the division, fine. If you want to simplify, fine. But do not do it this way. That is not the right way, because what always goes in the house is your numerator. I don't care what it looks like, big, small, whatever. It goes inside. That is your dividend, always. Okay? Order does matter, so you need to make sure you're reading the order in which it goes. That applies to this question, so it's all about reading the question. The paint supply store has 30 cans that hold a total of 120 gallons of paint. Now look at the question. How many gallons are in each can of paint? We gotta think about, which way do I go? Well, it's saying gallons in each can of paint. So I want gallons per can. So what's gallons? Gallons is 120, cans is 30. I want to know how many gallons are in one can of paint. Now, this is 120 over 30. You could cross out the set of zeros to simplify it a little quicker. And then that right there is mental math. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So each can of paint that you're getting has 4 gallons in one can of paint. Now, of course, I add a little flair to this. So if each gallon of paint costs $19.95, how much would it cost for me to get all that right there? So how much would it cost? Well, each gallon costs $19.95, and I'm getting 4 of them. What would you do? Multiply. Correct. So you do $19.95 times the 4 gallons for the one can. We're just looking out for one can if I bought one of them. And therefore you would have that 2, 36, 38, 39. Now some people can see a quicker way to do this, and feel free to always do that. I got $79, because remember I moved the decimal over, so I moved it 2, because there's 2 over here. Remember this old rule, boom, boom, so boom, boom. So I would pay $79.80 for 4 gallons of paint. That's a rate. Yeah. All right, so tomorrow we're gonna kind of pick up on this a little bit more. So remember, make sure you're reading the order of the question. Does your answer make sense? And then try to start writing labels or units like gallons and miles and feet and inches. If you do that and you kind of write stuff across from each other, it's going to help you so much. Okay? All right. See you guys tomorrow.